Hello, everyone. Welcome to our SIGUCCS webinar on Following the Direct Path, Effective Short Presentation Tips, presented by Mo Nishiyama. Mo is a technical writer in Information Technology Group at Oregon Health and Science University. He's worked there for 18 years, mostly as a help desk lead analyst and a desktop support analyst. His mission is to translate technical jargon infested user instructions into a format that is customer-friendly and serves the business needs and empowers the readers. But before we jump into the webinar and get started, just a couple reminders. By default, you are muted, and that's really to help us cut down on any background noise that would be distracting. So if you have a comment or a question, just please feel free to chat those in, and I'll help the facilitation of this webinar. So I'll let Mo know about any questions you may have. This session is being recorded, and it should be available within a few days on the SIGUCCS website. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mo.
Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me, Beth?
It sounds great. Yep, you sound great.
Okay, great. Before the presentation begins, just a reminder that the next SIGUCCS conference is happening this October in the wonderful Emerald City, also known as Seattle, Washington. If you're showing this webinar at a later time to your colleague, also let them know about the SIGUCCS conference in Seattle. Calls for proposals, they were originally due today, but has been extended until March 1st. So you still have time to get your conference proposals turned in. As with the last several years, one of the accepted formats for the proposals is the lightning talk, which is a 7-minute presentation. We'll talk about lightning talk and other short formats in this presentation. Giving a presentation is like being in a fancy kitchen with all the tools at your disposal. You have the pots and pans, the utensils, the appliances, and an assortment of ingredients at your fingertips for your next masterpiece. The possibilities are nearly endless, and you want to unleash your creativity onto the world. Despite our best intentions, sometimes our efforts don't turn out the way we hope to. I hope this is not what your Valentine's chocolate dessert looked like. We could have the most brilliant idea for presentation in our heads, but sometimes execution results in unexpected results. This is true of any presentations or public speaking engagements in which we participate. Presentations with shorter length have its own unique challenges. These types of presentations are what we'll be focusing on during this webinar, although some of these tips can also be applied to longer, full presentations. A huge challenge in giving short presentations is knowing what to use and what to leave out. The Greek philosopher Aristotle once said, "The more you know you don't know." And that sentiment has been paraphrased in one form or another by luminaries such as Stephen Covey and David Byrne of Talking Heads. This is very true in giving presentations. Many of us are subject matter experts or domain experts in our fields, and when we are given an opportunity to share our discoveries with others, we are often faced with that dreaded two-pronged affliction. First, we have the curse of knowledge. As subject matter experts in our field, we want to share our in-depth findings and stories with the audience. We want to share in-depth and sometimes fail to curate our knowledge. Secondly, many of us, especially those in SIGUCCS group, are very enthusiastic about sharing our experiences and findings with others. I see this at SIGUCCS and other conferences. Throughout the year, many of us are challenged with overcoming technical, managerial, and business challenges. And when we do reach that eureka moment and solve our professional challenges, we're excited like kids in a candy store. A generous kid in the candy store who will buy out all the candy in the store and share them with their friends. So what can we do to make our short presentations effective? We're going to discuss 5 key tips. It's important to think about how to organize the flow of your presentation. How are you going to capture your audience at the beginning of the talk, take them on an adventure of change, and leave them transformed 7 minutes later? There are no magic bullets here, but whatever you do, please do not regurgitate bullet points that are on a screen for the entire presentation. Some successful short talks at past SIGUCCS conferences have demonstrated the power of transformation. I've watched presentations about a colleague who have found renewed appreciation for work through traveling around the world and applying lessons learned, about overcoming doubts and apprehension while making that rewarding ascent up the career ladder, and how non-traditional backgrounds and experiences have made our colleagues effective IT problem solver. All of these talks have laid out a rich narrative exposition, what journey looked like, and how a new normal was reached. If anything, spend some time thinking about why is my story of interest to the audience. Effective stories and presentations are those that resonate with the audience. What do you want them to get out of your presentation? What's in it for them? Do you want them to know how you've optimized your organization's new help desks through continuous process improvement and a cycle of constructive feedback? Do you want them to understand how you've leveraged existing social media APIs to create a real-time crowd control LED signage system? Or do you want your audience to differentiate between non-urgent important tasks and urgent important tasks, and which of the two is better? Or do you want to convince the executives in an interview panel why you would make the best candidate for their organization's CIO position? Spending time thinking about what the takeaways will be very important. If you are engaging in a presentation format that uses visual PowerPoint or Prezi, keep them simple and to the point, because you do not want the contents on the screen to be competing with your presentation for the audience's attention. When possible, use photographs or other imagery that will leave a memorable impression on your audience. Professional presenter and expert Gar Reynolds has this advice for using text on slides. First, reduce the text on your slides to an absolute minimum. Second, do not read a text word for word off the slide. If you must include copious amounts of text and/or tables in your presentation, consider printing them out and distributing them as handouts. This way, the audience can focus on your presentation and can refer to the text at a later time. If you are using multimedia in your presentation, such as embedded videos or live web link, be sure to test them out before the presentation. There's absolutely little time to troubleshoot technical issues once your talk starts. And this is something that I've learned the hard way. Always assume that internet connection will not work during your presentation. And another thing about using visuals, definitely avoid things such as this one here. There's little chance that your audience will be able to decipher a complex spaghetti map like this one in such a short amount of time. This was a Pentagon presentation about the American military strategy during the Afghanistan war of late 2000s. Yes, it was created with a PowerPoint. Another important caveat about presentations, any presentations for that matter, is the importance of practice. First, the good news. Good news is that shorter talks will take less time to run through in its entirety. If you're giving a 7-minute presentation, you can squeeze in at least 4 run-throughs of your talk. Bad news is that you still have to practice. Just because a presentation is shorter than a traditional talk doesn't mean you can skip the rehearsal. Even if you are a seasoned pro at giving full-length talks, getting used to the flow and the convention of shorter talks can be a challenge. When you first rehearse, don't worry if you go over the talk length limit. The first several run-throughs are often ugly as far as timing and transitions go. They are often accompanied by expletives as well. One thing that has helped me during my short talk preparations is to aim for talk that's 20 to 30 seconds shorter than the desired length. Periodically, I might butcher some words or say something funny unexpectedly and I get thrown off by the timing caused by unexpected giggles or expletives. The last point here is important. When you are presenting at a short talk event or speaking during a team meeting with tight agenda, you will likely be sharing the stage or the conference room with others. It's in good form to respect the time of other speakers and meeting attendees. Yes, we often feel that what we're about to share is important enough to exceed our allotted time, but doing so will invariably shortchange someone else. you don't want to be that guy who's holding up the buffet line. A healthy solution is to offer in-depth conversations offline after the presentation or meeting if people are curious about knowing more. These tips and tricks for giving short talks isn't useful just at conferences or at meetings. These strategies can be used when you're giving 30-second elevator speech to an executive, when you're coaching your student workers or staff about upping their presentation skills, or when you have other time or limited time presentation opportunities. There are also many other events, both in academia and outside, that are focused on short presentations. The 3-minute thesis competition events are becoming popular with PhD students. Other conferences, including those affiliated with ACM, have also started incorporating lightning talks at their conferences. Storytelling events like the Moth Story Slam are happening in many cities. Presentation events like Pechakucha and Ignite are beginning to attract larger number of audiences. And for those who have mastered short presentations or become expert presenters, there are bigger buffet tables to go after. Now, at SIGUCCS, at EDUCAUSE, or even at TED Talks, mastering presentation skills, including those of short format, will open the doors to greater opportunities, because relating to the audience is an essential part of the presentation, no matter what the time length or the format. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them right now, and please do not forget about the SIGUCCS conference in Seattle.
So Mo, I figure, well, anybody go ahead and chat in a question, and I'll be happy to let Mo know what those questions are. But Mo, how how do you find yourself doing short presentations? Do you find yourself doing that at work often, or what are the different opportunities that you're able to take advantage of?
At work, team meetings, and we're one of those quote-unquote cutting-edge teams, at least in academia, that has weekly stand-up meetings where we're given maybe 2-3 minutes to share what we're doing project-wise with other members of the team. So we're very limited in amount of time that we're allotted to share our ideas. Also, when I present at other teams' meetings about how to write documentation or the status of our self-help guides, I try to keep the presentation short and simple and try to get to what's in it for them. So those are some of the work-related presentation opportunities. We also put together periodic lightning talk lunch and learn series at work where anyone in the organization is encouraged to share their non-work related ideas. And outside of work, I find myself stumbling into presentation opportunities several times a year.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, that usually happens by me going into checking out those potential talk events and bugging the organizers, and eventually they get sick of me bugging them and said, okay, come give a talk.
And I'm just curious, so was public speaking, no matter the length, was that something did you very consciously develop? Was it intentional, or is it something that you just feel like you enjoy doing so that you look for those opportunities?
Well, ironically, I hated public speaking growing up, and until I was in my early 40s, which was about 7-8 years ago. I always believed that growing up in an academic background, if I could formulate my thoughts in a nice outline format on a piece of paper, type that and turn it in, I was good, because nothing beats getting my thoughts across elegantly in an essay format. So speech and public speaking were the classes I hated the most in high school. But it was a lightning talk session at a different conference several years ago that really got me interested in the idea of sharing your story or sharing your idea in a limited time frame. And I've started looking up lightning talks, TED Talks, and other short presentation events, and started to follow them.
So it sounds like it was something so you really went in to personally grow in that area. You very consciously made that choice.
Yeah, and also around that time, my work presentations, whether it's giving a talk at the meetings or giving full-length presentations, they were full of bullet points. They didn't get to the point right away, and they didn't really connect with the audience as well as it could have been. So I felt that this is an area that I could definitely work on improving.
Great. I just sent a question out to the audience because I'd be curious, for those of you attending this webinar, what were you hoping to get out of this session? Because I want to make sure that we're, answering your needs. We do have a question about how do you practice the timing, especially 7 minutes seems very specific. So how do you practice it, and what if someone's afraid of having too much time or too little time? How do you get that balance right?
So first of all, the 7 minutes time is just arbitrary. For a SIGUCCS conference, it's 7 minutes, so I'm referring to it as 7. Some presentation events are 5, some are 10. So first of all, know what the time limits are. What I usually do is the timer on my smartphone or my tablet is my best friend. I start the countdown and rehearse. I don't beat myself over the head if I go over time the first several times, because things are going to be very, very rough. A lot of times I wind up taking information out if I consistently go over my desired time. Sometimes I shrink the information. Another thing that I've started doing more often is that I don't make up the slides if I'm using them until I've run through the presentation several times, because I feel that it's really important that the narrative, the content of the talk is there before augmenting them with slides. If the talks are really short, I don't think I've ever encountered that before, because I am cursed with that curse of knowledge.
One thing I wanted to mention is I actually, earlier in my career, chose to participate in Toastmasters, and I think they're an organization that's been around for a long time, and they have a very kind of regimented approach. I think you had to present 10 times, like when you participated in the club, and you could determine what the timing was for that. But I knew that I very consciously wanted, if I wanted to keep advancing in my career, I thought I would have to learn to develop my speaking skills. And so I found Toastmasters was a great kind of environment to do that and to get some skills down. We have, let's see, and I was going to say, Mo, I know whenever I have to speak, when I'm driving to and from work is almost my best practice time, because it's just me in the car, and I actually talk out loud when I'm practicing my presentations. So I physically talk out loud to try to get some of the intonations and expressions down as well. And I will keep a timer going on my phone or just watching the car radio. I'm not sure it's safe to be on the road with me when I'm doing that. I'll readily admit that, but that is something that I do. We have a few more comments here. Do you use the autoplay or timing features of PowerPoint or other software, or advance the slides yourself?
It depends on the format. For lightning talks, I usually advance the slides myself, such as using a clicker. However, there are several other talk formats, especially during presentation nights, where the slides advance automatically, such as Ignite and SIGUCCS. They're the presentation formats where the slides automatically advance every 15 or 20 seconds, and they're about 15 or 20 slides per presentation. So those are a fun challenge, because you have to keep your your presentation on schedule, on time, because you don't have control over when the slide is going to advance. And actually, one of my favorite short talk format, Ignite, one of the first videos I've seen of that genre, where you have 20 slides that advance every 15 seconds, is our own Dan Herrick, of SIGUCCS member, who's done a great Ignite talk about why safety razors are better than disposable ones.
I think we do have a question as far as what would you recommend for SIGUCCS, the autoplay or timing features, or just advancing the slides yourself?
For SIGUCCS, I've seen several styles. I've seen most of them are automatic. Most of them are advanced it yourself. But I've seen slides, very minimalistic presentation with maybe 2 or 3 slides during the entire time. And actually, I think there was one without any slides for that matter. But
Great,
most of them are, yeah, most of them are advanced it yourself. And one thing that's really important for me, I alluded to, do your plan your presentation on paper before committing to slides. Now, this may work for some people. This may not work for other people. I like to visually plan out the presentation using storyboard sheets. It's used in film and in other presentations. It's pretty much like 3 or 4 or 3 to 6 rectangle frames per page. So I can try to visualize how to fit my story, my narrative into those rectangles.
Great. I have one other question for you that's come in from the audience. Someone's curious about an epic fail. Have you ever had one of your own or seen somebody else fail, you know, where it just really didn't achieve the goals of the presentation? And if you can think of that, what that scenario is, do you think there's one simple thing that would have prevented that?
Yeah, I had an epic fail personally last year at a different conference where I was signed up to give a lightning talk, and this is one of those preparation things where we were supposed to give or when we get up on stage, we're supposed to load our presentation onto the laptop that was connected to the projector. They didn't want people bringing their own laptops in to swap it out because it'll take too long. We're in a tight schedule, so I brought my presentation on a USB flash drive, and it turned out to be one of those laptops where the USB port was next to very snugly next to the video port, and my USB stick was very wide and couldn't fit in, so I was like, I had to do my presentation without any slides. It was one of those technical epic fails. I've seen some presenters at conferences go over their time and didn't get a chance to finish their conferences or talk events. They didn't get to the meat of the key point before they were escorted off the stage. So it's really, I've seen some levels of epic fail, but having said that, I've never been in an event where people were completely booed off the stage, because one thing about these talk events and presentation affairs is that people are very supportive of the presenters. It's one thing that I should have mentioned during the main presentation, is that people who attend these talk events and presentation events are completely supportive of their audience.
Oh, that's great, Mo. Thank you. I know personally myself, whenever I feel like I fail, it's usually because I go over time because I like to talk too much and I put in too much detail. So I don't, the simple trick that sometimes I'll use is I'll just ask for someone in the audience to almost time me or to give me some visual cues so I can be very aware, because I get into my topic and then I just lose track of time. So for me, if I have somebody else helping me with that, that can make it go a little bit smoother.
Yeah.
Because I just am not able to control it on my own.
Yeah, in the SIGUCCS presentations, whether it's lightning talks or the regular talks, we do have the session chairs who keep time, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so those help a lot, especially when you are given visual cues that you have 3 minutes, you have 1 minute, get a chance to wrap things up.
Well, thank you so much, Mo. I don't see that we've had any other questions come in. So any concluding thoughts?
Please submit your talks, whether it's full-length talks or lightning talks or posters or a panel session or other ideas to the SIGUCCS conference. The deadline has been extended for college submissions until March 1st. And the conference URL is on that slide.
Well, thank you so much, Mo, for your time, for the care. I always love your slides. I thought the images were great, and even this webinar is reflective of your topic. Short, sweet, direct, to the point, and you told your story very successfully. So thank you, and thank you for those who are attending the webinar. As I mentioned earlier, the recording should be available on the website within a few days. Have a great Friday. Bye-bye.
Bye.